You're very welcome to the two-man wall. It's Johnny Ward with Adam Russell. Adam is smiling in the background because you came up with this name, Adam.
Yeah, it's a new name, but the same old great content, Johnny. So we'll welcome any title as well.
As long as we think it's great, that's the main thing. I tell you what isn't great though, the handball rule. This is it's just absolutely wrecking my head to the head-wrecking extent that it's making me not enjoy watching football to some extent when I see the ridiculous decisions that we saw last weekend.
I think even from a fan's perspective, imagine if you were a Spurs fan and you dropped 3 points on the back of a handball decision where the defender's not even looking at the ball, he's less than a yard away, kind of just strikes his arm, and it's been awful, to be honest with you, Johnny. I think the Premier League really needs to take a look at this, and sooner rather than later. So far, we've had 20 penalties in 28 games. So we're on track for 292 penalties across the season, which would be 200 more than in the whole of last season. It's just ridiculous, and it can't go on like this. We saw, obviously, the Leicester-Man City game, 3 penalties to Leicester. You're never going to win a game of football if you're conceding 3 penalties. And hopefully, the Premier League take a look at it and come out and say, look, we're going to go back to the old handball rule. I don't think. When we introduced VAR, no one was saying, "Oh, we need to sort out the handball rule."
Absolutely.
It was more about goals and wrong red card decisions and things like that, not handballs. So hopefully the Premier League rectify that sooner rather than later.
Couldn't agree more. And you have another gripe with restrictions for some of these early FA Cup games, which this is really entering the territory of absolutely bonkers as well.
Well, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about how Premier League clubs will survive financially with the whole crisis and Football League clubs, but it's the lower league clubs that are the biggest concern, in my opinion. They're the ones that rely more than any other clubs on match day revenue and getting fans into the stadiums. Now, for the FA Cup, the government have said for some of the early qualifying rounds that clubs can have up to 40 guests come to watch the, but they'd still be behind closed doors. You have to put them in a private function room with the windows blacked out and a big screen at the front when the game's going on outside the window. It's just crazy. We lost Macclesfield Town. Obviously, they've been expelled from the National League this week. And, it wouldn't surprise me over the next 12 months if we see more National League clubs, more of the League Two, League One Football League clubs really struggling financially. And the government really need to find a way of getting fans back into the stadiums, particularly the smaller stadiums, sooner rather than later.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk betting. So Jordan in the Star Sports team, he pointed out to me that you can get I would argue, rather ambitious 25-1 that Fulham have the lowest points record ever of a Premier League team, which would be lower than Derby and obviously that terrible Sunderland team. Fulham aren't that bad, Adam, are they?
I don't think they're as bad as either that Derby or that Sunderland team. It's just whether the standard of the Premier League overall is higher than during those seasons. 25-1 for them it's only 11 points is the record. So 25-1 seems a big price. There's obviously a lot of football left to be played. This one might have to be one we come back to in a few weeks' time. If Fulham still haven't picked up any points in 5 or 6 weeks' time, then we'll have another revisit of this one.
Well, we have a lot to talk about in terms of the outright market and obviously the big games the weekend. But first of all, let's get to some transfer talk. And you're going to bring up the horrible name that is Declan Rice, who's, probably the most reviled footballer in Ireland, I would argue, at the moment, since he abandoned his country and obviously declared for his actual country.
Yeah, but before that, what did you make of him? Do you rate him?
I like him as a player. I do like. He's actually for Ireland. He would be pretty much perfect because we don't have a holding midfielder, and he would just. Yeah, I do like Rice as a player. I think he's very promising.
I can't say I'm 100% sold on him as a holding midfielder. He kind of reminds me of Eric Dyer in that you always kind of feel like someday he'll end up as a centre back.
Right. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. But are Chelsea sold on him though? That's the big question.
I think they are, but I just think probably not this summer. They've obviously spent more than 200 million already this summer. They've brought in centre-backs, they've brought in full-backs, they've brought in a new goalkeeper, they've brought in forwards. The only spot they haven't really looked at is that holding midfield spot. I think with only sort of a week left in the window, seems unlikely that that's a deal that's going to be done. To be honest, it seems like most of the deals for the big clubs have already been done. We obviously know that United are looking for a wide player. They've obviously been talking about Jadon Sancho. We know they're looking for a striker and probably a left back in Porto's Alex Telles. But again, it's to whether they'll get that deal over the line. The other big rumour at the minute is Dele Alli. He's obviously he's been left out of the last 3 Spurs squads minus the Europa League game. So it's just whether he may move on. With Ali, I think it's far more likely that, particularly if he doesn't play between now and January, that he'll go out on loan, probably somewhere in Europe in January, try and get in that Euro squad for the summer. If he does get back into the team, then I'd probably expect him to stay at Tottenham long term. But as we know with Jose, you can kind of cast these players to the side, and when that happens, a lot of them will want to move on.
So 3-1 that these guys stay at their clubs.
Yeah, I was speaking to the traders this morning, and they were willing to offer us 3-1 on Sancho, Rice, and Dele Alli, all to still be at their respective clubs on October the 5th at 3-1. And yeah, that I'd be taking that one up. I can't see either of those three moving on before this deadline.
Yeah, okay, so before the show, you and I were having a little bit of a chat. Are Man City unravelling? Is Pep losing his touch and all this? But regardless of what's happened with Man City, you haven't watched Liverpool versus Arsenal without Thiago. I can't see how they don't win the league unless they've like catastrophic injuries. Jota just looks like a player that's going to thrive under Klopp. Love his attitude. I mean, he should have absolutely boxed Salah in the face for taking the ball off him, but instead he played on and scored an absolute beaut. He's just got this like beautiful, almost like childlike smile and enthusiasm after the game. Thiago's gotten the coronavirus, so that's obviously him out for the foreseeable, or not for the foreseeable. But in any event, Arsenal came to Anfield and they could barely get on the ball. And this is like one of the better sides in the league. City get battered by Leicester, and it's no surprise that Liverpool are odds on for the league, but they could still be big in my view.
Yeah, and obviously one of the things that was sort of levelled at Liverpool over the last 2 seasons was a lack of depth in their squad, certainly compared to Man City, who have obviously got huge depth. But sort of you see with bringing in Thiago and bringing in Jota, as you say, that they've now got more options in the squad. They've got options to make an impact from the bench. And I think that could be a real difference for them this year. Be interesting to see if they can kind of do what City have done over the last few seasons and compete on multiple fronts. They obviously got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League year, didn't do too well in the cup competition. So I wonder if Klopp might go after a few of these other trophies as well. Well, that brings us to another interesting market that we've got on site at the minute is how many trophies will Man City and Liverpool win respectively. I wanted to talk about the City prize just because I was interested by, to me, the value selection in this market seems to be 5-2 for them not to win a trophy this year. Now, given how good City have been in the domestic cup competitions over the last, well, particularly since Guardiola came in sort of the last 3 or 4 years, it's hard to see them not winning a trophy. But if you look at their defence and things that we've seen over the last few seasons, and I'm just not sure whether they might have that season this year where Pep goes and everything sort of falls apart. I mean, they've got so many good players that it's really hard to justify that. But it'd be interesting to see how their new centre back Ruben Diaz gets on. I think he'll actually be a really good sign. I think him alongside Laporte is a really, really solid back two. It's just how many games are they going to get of that two? How many games is Laporte going to play? Can you keep Diaz fit? And then what do you do about the full backs? Because it seems like left back's another problem area for them at the minute. Leicester had a lot of joy down that right-hand side at the weekend with Mendy obviously trying to push forward and then being sort of caught out of position. So I still think City have got work to do, and I still think Liverpool are favourites, but I definitely think it's interesting to see that 5-2 for City not to win a trophy, evens for them to win 1 trophy. And to be honest, we could have just given them the League Cup and at the start of the season and not played it, really, couldn't we?
Yeah, unless Leicester have another slightly black swan season, it's impossible to say really that it's not a 2-horse race. But I was sort of tipping up Leeds at the start of the season to finish top half at 2-1. They've started quite well. and will fancy their chance of doing something. 7-1 against City at the weekend, considering the form that City come into the game in. No Ellen Road crowd, obviously. This would be a great occasion for Leeds fans, but 7-1 and 1-3 the visitors.
10-11 Leeds to finish in the top half at the minute, which is a tiny price. I've said it to you before, I'm still not 100% convinced by Leeds. I think they did obviously do really well at Anfield, and they picked up good points since. But it'd be interesting to see how long they can sustain that. I still think they're probably 1 or 2 signings short. So if they can bring those players in before the window closes, then yeah, I think they've got a reasonable chance to top half. In terms of the weekend's game, I still think City will win. They should have, regardless of their injuries, they should have too much for Leeds.
I prefer to go for a shorter price double, which is Wolves are at home to Fulham 1-2, Liverpool are away to Villa 1-3, so that'll pay money with Star Sports. We also have Man United Spurs. I think Man United are a shade of odds on here. I've no idea what's going to happen in this game. I don't really trust either of these teams.
No, I'm pretty confident on the draw on this one. I can't really pick a winner. They both seem to be in sort of a period of, it's early on in the season anyway, so people are getting fit and getting up to speed, and neither of them seem to have really hit the ground running as of yet. Spurs.
Are you going to build a bet?
Yeah, I'm going to build a bet this week. I pulled out a 16-1. I fancied a bit more value in the draw. So obviously with all the penalties going on, I'd be going both teams to score in pretty much any Premier League game this weekend. So long as those penalty rules stay the same, then that'd be the way to go. So I'm going at 16-1. We want both teams to score, the match to finish in a draw, and Bruno Fernandes to score at any time.
Adam, it's great to talk to you as ever. Enjoy the football the weekend.
Yeah, I will. Hopefully I won't have to watch Bolton lose again this weekend. So
yeah, how is that going actually?
Very not good, to be honest. 3 defeats in a row, haven't really looked like scoring. We're still odds on to be promoted out of League One, but to be honest with you, I'm looking more down towards the bottom for us already. So,
oh Jesus, that's not good. Another club just having a dramatic fall from grace.
Yeah, I mean, we've brought in a lot of players, but they're all kind of not, even in League Two, they're not that proven. A lot of them have National League football, and it seems like the step up for them has been a bit much lately. I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, I've got a personal interest in this one, but it doesn't look great for us at the minute, and I'd probably be even more tempted than I was at the start of the season to take Salford on at 5-1 to win League Two this year.
Well, we started on a fairly grim note and we ended a fairly grim note talking about Bolton, but that was the two-man wall, and thank you for watching.